What's good, family? Welcome to part two of the Cristiano Ronaldo Lionel Messi debate. Now, in the first part, we concentrated on why this is the last time I'm addressing this topic, their Champions League output, and just why this is testament to their mindset that has separated them from one another, and why there is one that is definitively the GOAT. Now, in the second part, we'll be looking at their international record, looking at physical attributes, and also be looking at their common foe, Atletico Madrid, and their outputs against them, just again to truly show why one player is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the greatest player of a generation and arguably the greatest player ever. Now, when we look at their physical attributes, I think you tend to hear a lot how Ronaldo is more physically gifted than Messi, and in some capacities I think you could definitely argue that, but at the same time there are parts of their games which are just completely learnt things, like your ability to use your weak foot, your ability to use your head, your ability to dribble, and all these different things that have just come down to just like training and work ethic. But at the same time, I think if you look at Ronaldo's physiology, of course that gives him benefit with heading the ball. I think if you look at Lionel Messi's physiology, his physical makeup, if you look at that, his short legs allows him to get off the mark quick and makes him one of the greatest dribblers of all time. I'm not really here to debate who's more physically gifted, because ultimately we're not here to compare who has the benefits, who was born with this, who was born with that. It's what you actually do in the game to impact it, and does that maintain the same at all levels, and can you actually prove your claim to be the greatest by your impact being justified in those moments. Now, Messi is often referred to as a genius, and I think genius thrives under relaxation. But I think this relaxation can only come from knowing that you can actually produce the necessary goods at the right time, and that comes from hours and hours of practice of doing something so many times that your faith is built to such a level that you trust yourself in their moments. Now, a lot of people can say, yeah, I trust myself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. When it comes to the moment, they get betrayed by this. And I think if you look at free throws in basketball, penalty shootouts, and different moments like that where there's a lot of pressure on people, especially in them clutch moments, you see how people really behave and what really is actually going on inside. And if they're able to maintain that standard that they've set when the pressure isn't as high. And I just remember in my early days of barbering, I'd be cutting hair, and I just remember in these early days I'd be sweating. I'd be cutting the hair, and I'm not sure if the person in the chair would notice, but I'd be sweating from my armpits, the beads of sweat coming out of my head. But now I never ever sweat because I've done it so many times now. I have faith in what I do, and I think it's the same in nearly every profession, in every walk of life. It's just the more you do something, the more relaxed you are, and that's where genius can thrive. And this is what brings me to international football and international goals with these two guys, because it's funny. It's like Messi actually quit international football after skying a penalty a year after Xavi had actually left Barcelona, and for me that was very telling, because I think in the year after Xavi left, obviously the way Barcelona played had changed. Now, although that, like, obviously they'd won the Champions League the year before Xavi left, and I think in that year after, I think they still won the league again. But ultimately, there must have been a change in play that Messi must have noticed, and I think this culminated with him coming to the Copa America, playing against Chile. Now, if someone misses a penalty and he gets saved by the goalkeeper, I'm happy with that. But when someone misses the complete target, that tells me there's something about their mind state that's not quite the same, because like to score from 12 yards, they say it should be one of the simplest things in football, but we get only a few people are built like this. And I'm judging Messi by a very high standard, because that's the standard that's been set by the people that call him the greatest of all time. We can only judge you then to the greatest players of all time. And you look at Ronaldo and Messi's penalty records, Ronaldo's is got a better penalty record than Messi. I don't think it's the greatest difference, but ultimately I think it tells, and you rarely see Ronaldo miss a target. If he does miss a penalty, it's just due to the keeper guessing the right way or whatnot. When a player misses a target completely, I think it's very telling. And then in that moment for Messi to then retire on his team, to me, that is one of the biggest symbols of Messi's mental fragility and mental weakness for me. How can you quit on your team after going through a penalty shootout in which you missed the first, the most important penalty? Like, when you're a leader, you don't want to go out and losing or whatever. You think, oh no, I'm going to come back and do it again. For Messi to quit in that moment, for me, no matter what people say about Ronaldo, he's a baby, spits out the dummy. For Messi to do that, that is the biggest dummy spitting moment I've ever seen from a superstar. But Messi gets away with it because everyone said so much about him. It goes back to my analogy in the first part about the fella always posting his goal. We said so much, now we're embarrassed to even go back on our word and actually just admit the truth. And I think it's pretty plain to see. Now, when you look at their international breakdown of goals, especially in competitive games, it is staggering how different the actual output is. When Barcelona had your Puyols, your Xavis, your Iniestas, the Spanish golden generation that went on to dominate the world without him for Spain, they actually became the winningest national football team in history. They won a World Cup, they won European Championship, and I think they went on a winning streak and not conceding goals as well. That's like unparalleled in international football history. And they did all of this without Messi. Whereas Messi had a national team that was ranked like number 1 in 2016. The minute these players that dominated for Spain and dominated for Barcelona, in fact there were 7 outfield players that Messi played with for Barcelona that actually started for Spain also. Messi is not able to replicate not only his own personal output but also the team success, despite a large investment by the board to keep playing with top players. But some players can play with top players and lift them up to their levels. Other players can play with top players and again they don't have that impact. Why is this? And again, I think it shows it comes from mindset and what a person does in the toughest moments, when the most is asked for you, how you respond. Now, a lot of people will argue that in an international game, Ronaldo plays a lot of against a lot of weak teams and whatnot in the European qualifying. But then we've seen teams like Italy, England, and I think Holland not qualify for international tournaments. Whereas I don't think Argentina and Brazil have ever not qualified for an international tournament. Now, is that saying that that's definitive and it makes it similar? I don't know, and it's very hard to quantify. But the fact is, in competitive games, when it matters, one player has such a difference in goal output than the other, whereas they both tend to score a goal a game for their clubs. But the disparity in their numbers, to me, it's very telling. One player is just able to step up, while another his level just tends to drop. And to me, this cannot be the behaviour of the greatest player of all time. The funny thing about the international football scene is that Messi actually struggled to qualify for the 2018 World Cup, I think, and he came up with a game against Ecuador, which for me is probably Messi's most clutch performance, where he stepped up and actually put his team on his back. And the thing is, they're playing Ecuador and they had to win to go through. I think Ecuador scored an early goal and Messi just came back, boom, they scored 2 first half goals and a third in the second. Oh, it was an amazing hat-trick. He played a 1-2 for the first, and then there's 2 emphatic finishes for the second and third. And for me, that was one of Messi's biggest moments where he showed me. But for me, he's got that moment, but there hasn't been too many more where backs have been against the wall and you've asked Messi, what have you got? There's not been too many of those moments where you think he's actually done that. Whereas Ronaldo's got a history littered with times where his teams have been down in a tie, he's had to come back. Ronaldo's stats have shown that when his back's against the wall, he's able to raise his level and actually produce the goal a game that he promises. Just another fun stat that I just tells me the difference in their mentalities and what they're about is when you look at Atletico Madrid, who's like traditionally the third team in Spain, and since Diego Simeone took over them about 10 years ago now, I think there's only been one player in the whole of football that has scored a hat-trick against them, and that player has been Cristiano Ronaldo. 4 times. Ronaldo's able to break them down 4 times in single games. Like, everyone knows what hat-trick is in football, 3 goals. And for Ronaldo to do this time and time again against the most stingy defence in Europe on the biggest stage in Champions League knockout rounds as well as the league, this guy is a machine. He's an animal. He does what he says on the tin. He does what has been promised time and time again. And that is without a doubt a sign of greatness. How clutch you are. Can you keep producing? He does it over and over again. I don't know what to tell you people. There's one player that does this, keeps showing up and shining. Another player that doesn't have the same level of output or the impact on the game as he does against these lesser teams. He's like, in all these kind of like smaller competitions where they play lesser teams, Messi's numbers go up. But then when it comes to the biggest, best teams, his numbers go down and Ronaldo's maintain. It tells its own story. It's not that difficult to figure out. It's not that difficult to break down, people. The proof is in the proverbial pudding. So this just brings me to ask a few questions like, why does it not matter that Messi's numbers have dwindled when it matters most in the last 5 years, in his prime years, whereas Ronaldo's have actually gone up? He's actually done the most, scored the most international goals. He's like top scored in the Champions League in his prime years. One player has maintained or gone up, another player has declined. Why is this? Why does Cristiano Ronaldo have 7 or 8 more assists than Messi in the Champions League when Messi is the all-time greatest playmaker, has all these great assists? Why is this? I don't get it. Why is it reasonable for Messi to quit on his national team and then still be lauded as this greatest of all time? The greatest of all time should never quit, should never respond to adversity like this. There is no substitute for persistence, and when you reach adversity, the only thing that's going to get you through it is persistence. Keep going. But yet, Messi, time and time again, gets a blend and gets overlooked. Why is this? Ronaldo was undoubtedly the star amongst stars at Madrid. They've had a Galactico policy for a very long time now. People like Zidane, Ronaldo, Raul, Beckham, these guys won one league, one Champions League in like a 6-7 year period. Ronaldo, in a 5-year period, won 4 Champions Leagues, won a league title. He's got the winningest season, or the most impressive La Liga season in the history of La Liga. He's got all of this on his resume, playing him as a star amongst stars. Messi has had similar conditions. His teams have won more leagues than Ronaldo's. They've been competitive, but yet he's not been able to push his team over, because it appears that Messi can play for a national team that has their own set of Galacticos by any standard, and yet he cannot drag them up. They don't look to him to be that guy. He doesn't step up and be that guy. He doesn't demand the same level of respect that Ronaldo demands from his teammates. One player can be that, separate himself, and another player can and doesn't and hasn't. Portugal team was one of the poorer Portugal teams I've seen since I've been watching. Ronaldo walked into a team with Rui Costa, Figo, some great Portuguese players. They were not able to get it done. They got 12 finals, but they weren't able to get it done. And now he's playing in a slightly better team. But the team that he took in 2016 to win that Euro Championship was, without a shadow of a doubt, not worthy of a championship. But there was someone that made the difference, albeit getting injured in the final. He was the one that scored the goals and got the assist that actually got them through the knockout rounds. But for some reason, people still want to place Lionel Messi's name in the same breath as Cristiano Ronaldo's, when I believe this video has shown without a doubt he has no place in that mentioning. Now this leads me to ask, is Lionel Messi the greatest system player of all time? The greatest flat trap bully of all time? What is he? Because to me, he does not have a resume that suggests that he's the greatest player of all time, because there's someone in his generation playing against the same level of competition that he does, that are able to do and maintain the standard that Messi cannot keep up with. So when we look at the Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi debate, I think it comes down to be understanding the difference between the knowledge and the wisdom that goes with this. Because there's a lot of knowledge that people can bring to the table. 6 Ballon d'Ors, 91 goals in a season. These things are great. But the thing that bridges the gap is applying wisdom to facts. What you do is add wisdom by adding context to what you're saying. Now, when it comes to a conversation, listening with context is actually the most important part. Because someone might say something, but it's up to you to apply the context in which they're speaking. Because we know words have got a lot of variables. They can mean 2 things. So it's up to the listener to have the context, to add the context by either understanding it for themselves or asking a question to get there. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, and we see this happen across all of society. We see it happening with people's opinions on religion, race, politics, history and whatnot, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos. But this lack of wisdom, all it does is lead to emotional rhetoric that just leads to no solutions being had, and people just reacting emotionally and arguing emotional points that will never have any place in creating a solution or the foundation of any truth. I'm no longer having this debate or this comparison. Point anybody on either side of the argument here. If you feel you have more relevant facts, feel free to comment. But please share, subscribe, comment, like, and until next time, peace.